everyone. Welcome to the LaunchPreneur experience. And today I am so grateful to have Jay Razzouk here with us. Jay is a lawyer. He's a California business attorney, and he has been litigating cases for over 10 years. I'm going to let him explain to you what he does and how he has been supporting his clients. But I'm very excited to have him here today talking about issues that we as entrepreneurs, we face all the time. And there are some things that we were talking behind the scenes that really blew my mind that I didn't know. And I had so many issues with my contracts. And Jay, he was so kind to actually support me and give me some guidance and audit my contract in order to give me some ideas on what needs to be changed. So welcome, Jay. Thank you so much for joining us. And please share with the audience a little bit about what do you do.
Thank you, Fernanda. I'm so excited to be here. And so just a little bit more about me, but that was a great intro. So those 10 years of litigation I did, that was involving Fortune 500 companies. If you read the Wall Street Journal, you see almost every day there's a huge scandal and maybe like billions of dollars are lost by the company. Maybe management lied or people very upset. The government comes in after them. So I was part of, in a sense, the cleanup crew for shareholders trying to, fix the company and make sure those things never happen. But it was really frustrating because it's so hard as an outsider to change the heart and soul of those corporations, those huge, huge corporations and their leadership. And so I just wanted to really work with entrepreneurs and just help give them that transformation of how to run the business in a secure, safe way that will, make happy customers, make happy employees, and just lead to that success of a business. Because maybe you don't know this, but if you are a small business and get involved in litigation, there's only a 17% chance that you as a business will survive within the first 5 years. I mean, it's just astounding. Wow. Whereas normally, even to say it's somewhere between 25 to 30% maybe of those small businesses will survive the first 4 to 5 years. But if you're involved in litigation, you're instantly down to just 17% survival rate. So it's critical to have good legal in place. And I just love trying to work with these scaling businesses that are growing rapidly to make sure they're protected.
Yes, I love what you do because, when we think about a lawyer, if you have a lawyer knocking in your door, the first thing is like, what? It's that fear, right? And there's so many situations that we could avoid the problem instead of trying to deal with the problem. And today, Jay is going to talk to us about client agreements and why. So the name of his presentation is Client Agreements Are More Than Protection. They increase your profit, elevate your brand, reputation, and relationships. And when Jay submitted this topic, I was like, what do you mean about a contract, a client agreement, increasing your profit? Because I can see how it actually avoids problems, but I could not understand how it actually increases your profit. So Jay, can you talk to us about, the ways that happens?
Sure, definitely. So there's actually three things I definitely want to cover about with their client agreement on how it can increase your profit. And as Fernanda just said, most people don't think about this. But I mean, first or foremost, like when you're signing up a client, what are they going to get? What are they going to see from you that really is now for the first time going to really show your character and what you're about? That's going to be your agreement. And so it's critical. And I love, I'll just say, I'm an INTJ. That's my Myers-Briggs profile, that J, judging. I'm always, in a sense, judging people. I feel bad. I'm very bit judgmental. And I really judge businesses when it comes to their contracts. And I can tell, oh, this is a newbie business. They don't know what they're doing. Or, oh, wow, this is a really impressive contract. These people have to act together. They're really professional, detail-oriented. Or I could see a contract where it's just so lopsided, so one-sided. Everything is for them and everything is against you. I'm like, why would I want to deal business with a person like this who's so distrusting and just wants everything in their favor? And more often than not, my intuitions about that business from the contract often ends up being true. But there's exceptions. For example, I recently did a contract audit with a virtual assistant who is a premier VA who helps really top-notch uh, influencers, people in the online space who are well known. And she had this terrible agreement that just looked like it was cut and paste. Formatting was awful, missing tons of terms. And I'm like, you really need to upgrade. You really need a contract that's really going to reflect the professional that you are. And that's just what I told her. And so many people don't think of it that way. Really, it is a part of your branding. And I love seeing contracts where people, integrate the logo, they put in their colors, they really make it fit with who they are and tell a story about themselves, even just with their contract. So you don't want your contract to scare away people. You need your contract to reduce friction and in fact just wow people, really reinforce what you want them to think, that you're professional, you're detail oriented, you're caring, whatever it is. Your brand should be reflected in your agreement. And if you just take your average cut and paste contract, it's not going to tell that story. So definitely you want to put some thought into your contract, let it reflect you, especially what you want reflected. And again, bad contracts will scare away people. That's costing you money. How much money does the loss of one client mean to you? And just think of that. So whatever that cost of one client is, like, feel free to dump that amount of money into your client agreement to make sure it's going to really be there to support you and attract customers.
Yes, I love one thing you said, because there's some contracts, like I actually was going to work with the coach. When I read the contract, it was all about her, protecting her. There was nothing that protected me. And that made me feel like, what about me? What's in there for me? So should I have a contract also for her to sign? And I didn't work with her. When I saw the contract and all the language, even though it was very professional, it was absolutely branded. It had like a lot of thought into it. There was like, you can tell a very high-end attorney did that contract. I felt like, because there was nothing there for me, it was written by a very high-end attorney. I just felt like if I get into the contract with this lady, anything I do, I will lose. If she doesn't deliver it, I'm losing. Anything that happens, I'm always losing. She's always going to win. So I didn't go in, I didn't hire her. I hired somebody else. But in a way that, when we think about the contract, we think like avoiding problems. But when you avoiding problems, you're actually increasing your profit, right? Because if you, like for myself, like I was talking about Jay supporting me, I had a client that didn't pay me after 2 months of work. So my contract was not clear enough that was protecting me, that now I lost that money. By losing that money, I'm not being profitable. So losing money, like when you think about losing money as an opposite of having a profit. Now, the other thing too is the copy and paste you mentioned. When you copy and paste contracts from other people, I copy and paste one part of my contract from somebody else, and that person was in another state. And when Jay told me this, like the Commonwealth of California, and Jay's like, no, California is not a Commonwealth. And I'm like, what? So my contract, it's already, not good. So that little tiny
it's clear thing, it was cut and paste. Yeah.
It was a cut and paste. So I love what you said, Jay, about being branded, creating trust, that like the 3 ways your client agreement can increase your profit. It's avoiding problem, avoiding loss, creating the trust brand, and really representing, protecting you and your client, that shows that you care. So that's huge. And that, like, the first interaction with your client before they sign the contract, that could be a deal breaker for them, right? Like it was for me with one of the coaches.
And then there's 2 other ways where it helps helps your profits too. So the second big category is it gives you options when something goes wrong. Like you talked about, you had an issue with your client. Was your contract there to really back you up to resolve that conflict? And most contracts I look at are empty on this. There's nothing there about how you resolve conflicts. Good contracts will say, if there's a problem, you have to talk with each other. You have to speak with each other. You have to give the other time to fix what's wrong. Or, instead of just running to court, that, again, you try to negotiate. If that doesn't work, maybe try mediation. If that doesn't work, go from there. So just always trying to bring the parties back to speaking, trying to work things with each other, because so many people, I think, have this mindset that, oh, it's broke a contract, I now need to find a lawyer and go to court. You want to avoid that. Going to court is just so risky. Never know how things will turn out. Everybody thinks they know the law, but they really don't. And you need to just work things out. Keep the lawyers out of it. The lawyers are going to suck up money. Lawyers will always win no matter what, but you will win when you can work things out with the other party. So make sure your contract encourages that and creates this environment of communication and dispute resolution. And there's all sorts of clauses we could talk about that go into that. And then the third one to talk about too, I think you mentioned, was protecting your intellectual property. Like, that's so important. There's so many people who just bring people into their programs, deliver tons of value by videos, by materials, that handouts, all sorts of information they work so hard to put together and make. And someone could just join a program, download everything, and then say, oh, I don't like what I got. This is useless. Quit, ask for a refund, and then turn around and start using that stuff for their own program. I hear this story all the time. You need a contract that's going to be rock solid, that's going to say, this is how much it costs just to access my information, just to use my stuff. And if you even walk away from my program, you need to pay me for my intellectual property, and I have a right to stop you from using it.
That it's huge. And I feel like, because I help clients on the back end with their launches, I have seen, and I get to talk to a lot of different, people that are going and trying to find the right coach. And I have heard so many stories of people copying, coaches copying other coaches, and just changing a little bit of that language, just rebranding, and then now it's mine. And also coaches that have delivered somebody that was like a 12-month program. They were in the program for 9 months, going the 10th month. And they said, you know what? They implemented everything. The coach has all the records that the person implemented everything she was using. She made money. She posted, like on the internet, that I made this much money. And then the 10th month, she decided not to pay anymore. She got a refund, full refund for the whole month, for the whole year.
Wow. And this is not uncommon. I hear this happen so often.
Yep. So there's so much
people
that can
say
go wrong.
They don't get. Yeah. And it's just so frustrating. Yeah. The people say they get nothing out of it really are the ones who are exploiting it the most.
Yes. I totally agree. And what are the 3 must-have terms, that they have to have in their contract that we often don't do that? And you said one of them, it's mediation, how we're going to solve this problem. Another one is protecting their intellectual property. What would you say would be the third one?
The third one would be regarding payment terms. And I mean, I've even seen contracts that have not included the price of a program, what they need to pay. And price is one of the most important terms to have in your contract. But even besides that, that's obvious. But other terms that often get forgotten, especially for entrepreneurs who are just starting off, are concepts of things that will help you if there's a credit card chargeback dispute. And so if you haven't encountered this yet, this is becoming more and more popular. Like, it's just exploding, where people are learning that if they charge something on their credit card and they aren't happy about it or whatever, they'll tell the credit card company, hey, I was defrauded, or I haven't gotten the product, whatever, I want my money back. And then the credit card company will then go back to you as a vendor and say, is this true? Prove it. Otherwise, we're going to take back your money. And you have to understand, the law is extremely lopsided on this. The customer, the consumer, almost always is going to win. And so if you are, you're involved with consumers, you're not business to business, you're business to consumer, and you're helping consumers, you're especially at risk here of having these chargeback disputes. And again, we're talking about customers who maybe they'll be happy up through 6 months, and then decide, oh, I'm having financial difficulty here, I want to get my money back, and they'll come up with some story that will be just enough for that credit card company to claw back the money. To avoid this or minimize the risk of it, and to give yourself the best chances in a credit card chargeback dispute, you need to have terms that are going to be very clear that, one, they authorized you, you have permission to charge a credit card. Second, that it's very clear, it's spelled out what you're providing in your program and how you deliver it. And that word there is key, delivery. When it comes to like shipment of goods, if you're selling some product, someone buys a vase online and it's being sent to the home, well, it's clear whether it's been delivered or not, right? Unless someone stole it from the doorstep. But when you're delivering a service, what does that look like? When does it start? When does it end? What are they getting? That needs to be spelled in your contract, so you could just easily say to the credit card company, look, this is what I said I'll give them. And look, here's the evidence of how I gave that to them. And that will help you out a lot. So having that authorization there and then clear demonstration of the services. And then you might want to have language too about how if they do credit card dispute, they're still on the hook. A lot of people on both sides, I think the consumers and also business owners think if there's a credit card dispute, that's it, it's over, you can't get the money back. No, you could still go after the consumer and make them pay up. It's just that one form of method, that one form of payment now got reversed. But make it clear that you can still go after them. They're still on the hook if they do a chargeback dispute. And maybe say they're responsible for fees and stuff if that happens. So you can protect yourself a lot, especially in the context of credit card disputes.
Interesting. Yeah. Because I thought that once you get that chargeback, then like that's it. But as you're saying, if you have a good solid contract, you could still take to the next level and maybe have an attorney. And I feel like when people, when they have that bad intention, you don't see it up front, because as you said, people will start with a good intention and then they have financial problems. Then they have to find a way to break the contract. They will do any excuses to break the contract instead of just trying to negotiate. And that's where the mediation clause, it's amazing, because you can say, one by one, you can connect with and that comes customer service too, right? Because there's situations where things happen, like one of the family members die and they have to put all their money towards, the bread, the bread winner of the house dies, and now what you do. So you have to be able to understand people's situation and move forward. And at that point, you need another contract, right? To be able to, okay, we're breaking this contract here, but now we have another contract in place that we are giving you this specific, break or specific help in here. So those things, I think, that can totally avoid a lot of problems. And sometimes you end up going to court. There's no way around. But one thing that I think about it, how much it's worth for you to go to court, and the headache and the mental energy that it takes you, and to go to court and fight for that $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, even pay an attorney and have that feeling towards that person, is that worth? So if your contract is rock solid, you could avoid that by having that mediation in between, by having a good reason, right, to still have that client with you and still get paid in different ways. So yeah, I see the importance of this, and we see this happening all the time. And we go to Facebook groups, people are asking, for suggestions, for support, because something like that happens. And what are the 5 most common contract mistakes that you see that entrepreneurs are making online right now?
Great question. So the first one is, I think there's an over-reliance on confidentiality agreements. Like, there's a good place for it. They really can protect your trade secrets. Like if you work with employees or independent contractors and you're sharing your customer lists or your secret sauce and you want to protect it. But people also try to use it to protect their stuff with regard to their customers, with their clients. And you can't just go share with the world your ideas and expect to use a confidentiality agreement to protect them. There's limits. It doesn't protect public information. So what that means is if one of your customers goes and takes your stuff, your secret sauce, and shares it with the world, you now have lost the ability to protect it if you're just relying on confidentiality. Really, what you want to do is use the intellectual property clauses I mentioned before. Explain your copyrights and give them limited permission under copyright law to use your stuff. That's the better way. Don't use confidentiality agreements for that sort of thing. And I know there's
okay, that was for me right now. Okay, I will take ownership on that one. That was huge for me right now. That's how my contract is, and it doesn't protect me.
Yeah, and I see huge coaching programs, big name coaches making this mistake too. A lot of people doing it. And I think even some attorneys do this wrong. But yeah, understand the difference when to use it and when not. That will help you immensely. Another problem, second one, is I think a lot of people take pride in having these, what I call the itty bitty contracts. These one pagers that are cute, seem, really warm, friendly, just key basic terms. On one level, that's great. There's minimal friction, right? You see those few terms, you know what's there, you sign it. But the problem is there's so much is left to be guessed when something bad happens. Or the terms there are so vague that then when there is a problem, nobody knows what the contract really means. Sadly, you do need to have more terms, more things in place, have those longer contracts to actually protect yourself. And that protection, again, comes from laying out what happens when bad things arise, because bad things almost always are going to arise. So you want to have that, like a script in place that you and your customers can follow when situations arise. So yeah, avoid those itty bitty contracts unless you really need them. The third mistake I see so often is that people promise the world in their advertising. Marketing people love to use these huge hyperboles of things, best, greatest, number one,
anything, everything,
everything, exactly. And then when someone goes to sign the contract is so narrow and they're promising almost nothing in the contract. So what's the problem there? You're building huge expectations in the customer. What you actually promise is itty bitty, almost nothing. And when the client then expects you to deliver, what are they going to expect? Is it what you advertise or what's in the contract?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're going to go with what you advertise. That's what they signed up for. They probably didn't read that agreement. And so when the day comes and you don't deliver on your advertising promises, that's when then they get frustrated and go talk to a lawyer and you have problems. So make sure that there is this harmony between what you advertise and what's in your contract. Really important. Mm-hmm. Now, the next problem I see is very related to this. And this is where people put that marketing language that is problematic inside their contract. So they're actually promising things that no human could possibly deliver.
Your last thing you ever gonna need to achieve A, B, and C, or $100,000 in a month, right?
Exactly. Or I will use my absolute best ability to help you secure your results. Like, really? So you're going to drop everything you're doing, your kids, you're going to put them to the side. You're going to, even let your business collapse while you're trying to help this person because they're number one, totally. No, don't set yourself on, don't impose these burdens on you. Don't turn these marketing gimmicks into promises in a contract. Keep that out. And this is something where maybe a lawyer's trained eye will spot easier than you as a marketer, but be mindful of that. Don't put it in your contract whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So the fifth and final one is, I see this in 95% of the contracts I look at. And this is, or maybe even 95%. And this is where people fill out the wrong parties in the contract. So what I mean is, like, first and foremost, they identify themselves wrong. And What that means is let's say you form an LLC. You have a business, you want that business to be on the hook, right? You don't want to be personally liable for what your business does. But let's say you go and sign the contract as yourself, as the owner of the business. Well, you have now just technically made yourself on the hook. You have made yourself the party to the contract. Or yeah, founder, owner, maybe they don't even put title. They just sign as an individual. I see this so often. You don't want to be the party to the contract if you have a business entity. If you have a LLC, if you have a corporation, have your LLC or the corporation be the party to the contract. So how do you sign it? You sign as, like, if you have a corporation, you sign as the CEO or whatever your title is. If you're an LLC, you sign as the manager, or again, whatever your title is there. That's how you sign it. So it's you put the name of the business, and then you say buy, and then you sign your name, and then put in your name and title. But that's how you sign it as a business. So many people get that wrong.
I'm getting so many slaps on the face right now. I'm just thinking about my whole contract. So I have a corporation and I sign as myself. That's how I have been signing. And this is
just
like
Fernanda Furman, period.
Fernanda Furman. That's it.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, Jay. And here's the thing. I think when we start our business, we're so eager to support others with what we do. And one of the things we put aside, I think two things. It's one, it's what is the kind of business that I'm going to have? Oh, I just do 101. So I don't need to have a corporation or an LLC. Oh, and you know what? A contract, I trust this person. I'm just going to do like something simple in writing, or, we don't protect our intellectual property. Like you're saying, I did a service as a service provider. I did a launch for a client, and everything that I have been collecting through all the events that I have made before, through pains that I went through, I created this super robust, back end system that I shared with her to support her, to help her. And now I learned that she's teaching that inside of her private program, which I don't have access to.
Wow.
So now she's using my document that I created, my system that she pushed me to teach her team, because it's part of, this. I can't succeed without my team knowing this. I didn't have on a contract that if you want me to train your team, this is the amount that you need to pay me for. And this is my intellectual property. You're not allowed to share, to sell, to do anything with that. You can use it, but you cannot share. And here's how much you can pay. I didn't have that there. So because my client was an attorney as well.
Oh, no.
I didn't have a lot of, room to really, do I want to spend $10,000 and get that done? Or I just learned my lesson and I need to let it go. So that's when I just lost my profit over there, right? So by not having that income, I'm now losing money, which means I'm decreasing my profit. So
exactly.
Goes back to the very beginning.
If you understand intellectual property and how to identify what type of intellectual property you have and how to go about protecting it and monetizing it, that will go so far to boosting your profits. That is a great illustration, Fernanda.
Yeah. It still hurts me. I decided to let go, but it still hurts me. And it's always going to be something. And I still, at this point, I don't have that in my contract. I learned the conversation, like setting the expectations. And I think contracts set the expectations. I worked with a client that she said, I don't like to work with anybody that has contracts. And I asked her why. And she said, and she's a high corporate lady, like she's in the high end of the corporate world. And she said, because if you're giving me a contract, that means you don't trust me and I cannot trust you. And I said, well, contracts are, for me, there to set expectations, because along the way, we will forget what we talked about, even though we recorded that meeting, which now that's something I do. And I put in my contract that our meeting, we have a meeting where we set expectations. It's going to be recorded. And that's what we're going to be using in the future. If we come to any disagreement, we will use that. And I don't even know if that's legal or not. I just put that in there. And
let's talk about that.
Yeah, there we go. So that's what I did. Like, I record our first initial meeting where we set the expectations. I share with the client, and she sends me a document saying that she received that, because that's her on the video. It's recorded, it's her in a video. And then she sends me a document saying that she received that meeting that was shared with her with all the expectations. And that I just mentioned that in my contract now, where I said all the expectations are, being set in the meeting. And then I put there the link to where that meeting is located, which makes all my contracts unique. Like I have to redo for each one of the clients, which I learned that you should have everything automatically done. You do one set of contract and you send everything out. Mm-hmm. So it's one extra step for me. But I feel that now I can always go back and say, hey, remember, we talked about this. This is how it is.
What you said is spot on. And like you, I say contracts are basically what a contract is a set of legally enforceable expectations. And I think that's dead on. Like you nailed it, that it's all about expectations, and it should be expectations that you and the other person agree on. That's why it's called an agreement. You agree these are what each other will be doing for the other. And so having it in writing is so important for the relationship. There's a proverb that two cannot walk together unless they agree. And so you can't do business together unless you are in agreement with one another. It's just so critical. And so what do you need to have for a legally enforceable agreement? Must it be in writing? Usually the answer is no. There's certain types of contracts that must be written down. And then the next question is, what does it mean to be written down? Well, perhaps even audio recordings nowadays might be written. But here's why I try to discourage that type of thing. And this is why it's so important to have a good, well-written contract. Because if there is still a problem, if you have to go back and rely on this recording, how can you figure out what both parties actually agreed on? Maybe you had a discussion and you're bouncing ideas, but did you come to an agreement on a specific point? Now you have to pay attorneys tons of money for them to just figure out what the contract might be. Then you got to pay tons of money to convince the judge and jury what it might be. And now it's just a total toss-up. If you have it in writing, just spelled out all nicely, very clearly, you will make it easier if you have to go to court. But it should make it even easier to avoid going to court, because there's less room for disagreement on what's there. And you could just tell the other person, hey, this is what we discussed, is what the agreement says. See, it's very clear, spelled out. You don't want to use your agreement as a crutch, right? Then you just sound like, hey, we had a deal, you got to stick with it. That's not good for relationships. Be relationship oriented, but you can use it with the right mindset. Use it to nurture the relationship, to build a relationship, because it's the foundation for it.
Yeah. And I feel like my contract has been changing along the years, even though it was not written by a lawyer. And it has been like, I work with somebody, I see their terms and conditions. I'm like, I should add that to my contract. And then I try to make it personal to myself, but it comes to the point, like right now, when business is growing, now it's time to have a lawyer looking at my contract. I already had flaws. I already had problems. And just right now, when I thought my contract was kind of good now, I just learned that there's two big mistakes that I'm making that they're not in my contract. So, and I feel like when we think about it, having a contract made, sometimes we get like, oh my gosh, it's just going to cost too much. And I cannot afford that right now in my business. It's just too much. But I see now as an investment, because the headache that I went through, I almost quit my business because of the specific client. And if my contract was solid and good, I would have probably avoid some of that headache. So I feel that when you start in business, you're learning all the things, even how you are delivering your systems and what are you doing. But it comes to a point where you need to invest. That's an investment, just like how you invest in your branding, how you invest, in people that are going to a project manager, and also build that relationship, Jay, that I believe that when something happens, you trust that person. Building a relationship with a lawyer ahead of time, especially somebody that works with coaches that understands the language, because that's another thing too. When that situation happened and I start looking for lawyers, they don't even understand what a coach does. And they're like, okay, so can you explain this to me? And I'm like, no, I can't. This person's not going to get it. And working with a lawyer, for example, the way you understand coaching programs, the deliverables, and you have been around so many coaches and you have supported so many that it's easier, faster, and cheaper to hire somebody. I'm not going to say cheaper. I don't like that word, but I would say.
No, it can be, because you don't want an attorney that's going to educate themselves on your dime. And
exactly.
Someone who knows what they're doing, maybe they already have a template, they could crank something out really quick. But if, again, you're dealing with attorneys learning for the first time, it's going to take them 2, 3, 4 times as long.
Yeah, because they have to research, learn, meetings, and all of that you're paying for. They charge per hour. So even having somebody, that you can trust to say, I have one question. Can you do me this consultation? How much would, and how much they charge for a consultation, that you trust them, that it's going to take them less time than it would take somebody else, and build that, because when something happens, and it will happen, if you're in business, there's going to be a time where something is going to arise. And this is just a matter of fact, right? So having that relationship, I think it's huge. And I totally appreciate you, Jay. I appreciate what you're doing, what you share here today. And Jay, you can find Jay if you have the workbook. You're going to see all the links where you can find him on LinkedIn. He's on Facebook. He's everywhere. So you can find him with the links in there, but also he's going to be in the group. So make sure to join our group to connect with Jay. And Jay has an action step for you where he's going to support you. And I'm going to let him explain how can he support you right now. And also when you register, you already got a free gift from him. That is the 5 risks every business owner should know and how to securely scale. That is huge. So if you got that free gift, make sure you go there and you find his gift there and look at that. Also, if you are part of the VIP experience, Jay's offering, and thank you so much for that, Jay, complimentary 30-minute client agreement audit. That can help you see the flaws that you have in your contract right now, and he can give you real feedback. So Jay, thank you so much. And would you please share with the audience what is the action step that you can support them with in the group?
Yeah, so just like what we were talking about and how you were sharing your experiences, I would love to hear about your experiences about where you had a contract experience that went bad, whether you were the customer, but especially if you as a business person had a bad customer experience with your contract. Please share, and then I would love to just share then like how I would have handled that situation differently and help everybody learn from all of our mistakes. That's always how we learn best, and it's always better to learn from someone else's. So please share your story, and love to share insights from that. And that's also going to be a great way just for us to connect too, because I love hanging out on Facebook, and really that's the best way to even reach me there.
Thank you so much, Jay. I appreciate, and we see you all inside of the group. Thank you.
Thank you.